So again, this verse is, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. So if a child has natural musical abilities and is given space and time to pursue this passion, when he is old, it will remain with him. We consider this a great spiritual crime to force a child to play football, for example, who does not enjoy it. This is a crime against his soul. So the parent must stop and observe their child. What is the natural inclination of the child? The natural inclination. And most parents are busy beating out of the child their natural inclination, not with fists, not with physical blows, but with words. With words and disdainful looks and redirects. And in order to find this natural inclination, space, time must be given with no demands on the child for performance of any kind, allowing the child to just be, and in that space, the natural inclinations will emerge. When this vessel's boy was very small, 3, 4, 5, he would spend countless hours and hours and hours drawing. He could spend many hours drawing money. The dollar bill he had been given, he could copy it perfectly until he had 20, 50, 100 of his own dollar bills that he drew, that he counterfeited. And he could spend hours doing this without needing anything from anyone. This was his natural inclination. Now, some might look at the child and say, there is something wrong with that child. That child has just spent 10 hours drawing these $100 bills. But the mother understood this was his natural inclination and did not interfere. So parents have great difficulty in letting go of expectations of behaviors for their children.
Yes, and that's where I believe our education system fails. I believe they should see where the child's gift is and support them in that way.
Yes, and there is a fundamental lie beneath this issue. This is the lie. The lie is that children cannot be trusted to discover and develop their own gifts and talents. This is a travesty in our mind. For we in the fairy world understand that children are born with inherent God-given traits, abilities, talents that are their God essence, and they can be trusted to be in this God essence, to express it, to develop it, and to share it. And we think it a spiritual crime for adults to correct, suppress, corral these little ones to distrust and disown their own children by demanding they be something they are not. For example, a child might be the class clown, always laughing, joking, jesting, entertaining, and may be scolded for this behavior, even labeled a bad child. When in truth, this child is an immortal, a fool, a joker, a jester. This is the child's gift to the world. And we desire that space be made for this child's being, essence, gifts. When this vessel was very young, first grade, that would be 6 years old, as she sat beside her sweet friend in school, and they giggled in class about something, a very normal thing for little girls to do. A very normal. And the teacher sent her to the coat closet and made her put her nose in the corner. And so she learned that to be shamed. She will be shamed if she laughs, if she giggles, if she talks too much. Well, who says what is too much? And so a lie, a bad seed was sown. We have been talking about seeds this week, so we shall continue. A bad seed was sown that she was too much laughing, too much joy, too much happiness, too much talking. What nonsense. In truth, the teacher was jealous because the attention was not on her. That is all. Adults do not like to be upstaged by children, and we think this is foolish. We wish that all adults would be upstaged by children. Adults would do well to let go of all their natterings of the mind, ponderings, worryings, frustration, and simply get down on the floor and play with their children. In fact, they would not need to go to the psychiatrist or the psychologist if they would just do this one thing. For all healing that is needed, the word healing not being exactly the right word, but wholeness, all wholeness that is needed is found in being a child of God. Every dis-ease, every dysfunction, every frustration, hurt, wound, emotional scarring, trauma, all of these things are simply the fruit of forgetting that one is a child of God. Were all these ever so smart adults to be more childlike, things would be immensely different. This is the gift of growing old and becoming childlike. losing all your finesse, your suave, your tact, your discipline, your organization, to simply be childlike is extraordinary. When you danced the other night with your wife, the both of you dancing quite foolishly, not at all coordinated, skillfully, the bliss began to settle ever so sweetly. Also, children are very honest and perceptive. You cannot fool a child, they know the truth. We also consider it a spiritual crime to induce children to doubt their own instinct, their own perception, their own radar for the truth. Parents do this all the time. For example, a young child might be introduced to a stranger, perhaps not a stranger to the adult, perhaps a friend, a neighbor, a relative, a colleague or co-worker. It is introduced to the child for the first time, and the child refuses to extend his or her hand or refuses to acknowledge the person or look them in the eye, and they shall be scolded by the parent. But the child has an instinct, intuition, understanding that the person is not a nice person, a bad person, an unsafe, untrustworthy person. The parent commits a spiritual crime by demanding that the child associate with the adult against his or her own instinct. The parent would do well to notice whom the child rejects.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And who it's attracted to.
And would be all the wiser. Instead, parents teach the child to be false, to be untrue to what their gut is telling them about another, and to play nice.
To be polite.
Oh, we hate this playing nice. We hate it. In older days you might remember, children were allowed to fight it out. They were allowed to exchange their words and perhaps even their blows and then be done with it. And then the children were fine. They continued on in their relationship. A much healthier time for all. Now children are taught to play nice. In other words, to be false. To ignore their own instincts, their own impulses, their own emotions. And this is a crime. And this you may tell your parents when the child, and we believe you already do this, when a child comes in with consistent tummy aches. The parent needs to listen. When is it that the child has the tummy ache? Is it every Monday morning when it's time to return to school? Is it every Sunday morning prior to church? Are the children's bodily signals being listened to and respected, is the child taught to listen and respect what their body says to them? If a child has a headache before football practice every week, why is that being disregarded? And what are you teaching your child about their own health and well-being? Parents may take 2 Advil and drink a cup of coffee if they have a headache on Monday morning. So be it, but we consider it a spiritual crime to demand such behavior from a child. This suck it up type of attitude. This deteriorates and erodes the child's ability to cherish his or her higher self, God's self, to obey inner direction. A miraculous thing will happen when some of the new parents in the earth are awake enough to realize and wise enough to acknowledge that their infants might be more ancient and more enlightened than they. When this begins to happen, the earth may begin to transcend. As others in this round table have said before tonight, what is needed in the earth is not more politicians, more business persons, more religious leaders, more teachers. What is needed are fathers and mothers who have their shit together, who are awake, who realize they are providing space for the very essence and nature of God to manifest in the earth through their children. Above all things, we wish that parents would cease to force anything upon their children and cease practices of force of every kind. And we wish for parents to gather up their own loving authority and influence and be examples. What else may we answer for you?
Well, once again, I've got in that state to where I can't think. The mind just doesn't work in this state.
Yes, Bella has been on her soapbox this evening. It has been fun.
That's been some very good information, very good.
We love our children very, very much.
Yeah, I really like treating them, and so that's very important information.
Keep blessing the children.
One of the biggest things I've seen with children is becoming sensitive to foods.
Yes, because the food is so contaminated.
Yes.
So, when it is appropriate, accessible, teach the children and parents to bless their food, to pray for their food to be clean, energetically cleansed. Simple words such as, "Thank you for this food. Please make every bite of it into the very exact things my body needs to thrive. Thank you for this food."
Yes, what I do sometimes when I'm taking something that's not the best for me, I see it being full of love, filling it full of love.
Yes. Children were classically taught from a very young age to say a blessing over their food. Why? Is there any merit to this practice, or is it simply a lifeless tradition? What was the origination of this practice?
I guess to purify the food.
Most certainly.
That's why I tell people that eating food that's cooked in a McDonald's by somebody who's angry and upset is nothing like from a loving mother.
That is correct.
And that they should have an Italian or a Jewish woman cooking on each floor of the hospital, cooking specifically for each patient, and they'd be out of there in half the time.
Yes. Food may absorb loving intentions just as water does.
Yes.
Perhaps the mothers may even write loving messages upon the water bottles. When this vessel was young, her mother would many times write a loving note on her napkin and put it in her lunchbox. And she enjoyed finding this note from her mother during the school day.
Excellent idea.
Writing loving notes on napkins, on a paper, in the food, on the water bottle or the cap. Just to plant a loving seed.